Hi guys, there are dumb politicians and there are really dumb politicians. Danny Kennedy from the Ulster Unionist has to be probably one of the stupidest representatives I've ever come across, and I've been interested in politics for a long time. So as the results were coming in for the local elections in Northern Ireland, it was becoming apparent that both the Ulster Unionists and the SDLP's vote had completely collapsed. The biggest winners were of course Sinn Féin, who not only became the biggest party, but by a country mile. Danny here said one of the stupidest things I've ever heard. Have a listen.
Was up this morning till 6:30 in Newry at the Count, where the Slieve Gullion, after a long, slow day, was finally determined. And Sinn Féin had gone for 6 out of the 7. Now, in PR terms, 6 out of 7 is almost a miracle, right? But they had made a really serious attempt. And that would have led to the defeat of a sole Unionist representative in Newry and Mourne. And Mary Lou arrived yesterday at the Count in Newry with all the attendant fanfare and the manufactured applause. And
well, you don't know if it's manufactured or not.
And I was there.
It's manufactured applause, Danny.
Well,
I mean, applause is applause.
Well, it creates an atmosphere. So anyway, I had a perfectly civilised chat with Mary Lou and pointed out to her respectfully that if Sinn Féin did what they intended to do, there would be no Unionist representation from an area from just outside Mount Norris as far as Kilkeel and from Newton Hamilton to the edge of River Island. And I asked
what was her response?
And I asked her a simple question.
Right.
What would that do for community relations? What would it even do for the branding of something called a new Ireland or an agreed Ireland?
Give you a chance?
No, I don't say that.
Candidates. I mean, it's an election. Yeah, she's your own candidate. She won votes.
And I understand
it's
that.
Your problem, not her problem.
Well, it's everybody's problem when, had we been left, happily we weren't left. David Taylor won the seat successfely.
And, right, so it's an academic point you're making.
But it's an important point in their overall objectives. And those objectives fail to recognise where Unionists are in minority situations.
So whenever they...
So just think about it for a moment. This guy is complaining that Sinn Féin won so many seats that it could have represented a situation where there was no Unionist councillor. Now, it didn't happen, but it could have happened where there was no Unionist councillor in a council. So it would have been a majority, an absolute majority, 100% Sinn Féin council. And he was saying, that's not fair. Just think about it for a moment. A politician is complaining not just that his party lost a number of seats, but that another party won. Just let that marinate in your mind for a moment. He's blaming Sinn Féin for winning. Now, unionism has held a majority in Northern Ireland for decades. He didn't have a problem with that. But now that Sinn Féin are winning loads of seats, he's suggesting that they should have, pulled the brake a little bit. They should have held back and allowed Unionists to win seats instead, for some sort of unity, for some sort of parity, for relations. This is insane.
The Ulster Unionist Party ran Northern Ireland. Was that a consideration, that we had to give nationalists a chance, and there would be a worry if we were in charge and a nationalist community didn't get a voice at the table? I mean, come on, that was never a consideration, was it?
Look, try and keep up to date, Mark.
Well, what?
Wow, that's quite condescending, isn't it? And Mark Carruthers there, the journalist, made a very valid point. When unionism was running Northern Ireland, they didn't give a crap about, especially the Ulster Unionist Party, his party here, Danny's party, didn't have a problem, with ignoring nationalists. And now his response is, well, you need to keep up to date.
Well, what did you think, Danny, about full column get Mike?
I really don't know the point that you're making, and I don't know what keep up to date means.
Is it not the case that really Unionists are going to have to expand outside of their base and get votes from nationalists in those areas to try and gain and go across the divide, as opposed to thinking that Republicans should shrink themselves to accommodate unionism. I mean, you know my opinions on the union, but
yes.
I don't think a New Ireland means that they can't expand, that they can't campaign for votes.
But a New Ireland on the basis of sweeping every other representation away, it doesn't quite cut it when it comes to community relations.
She made a very valid point, that if unionists want to increase their vote, they need to reach out to other communities. Like, his response is, well, you know, our vote has dropped, so what we need is to be compensated for that. We haven't expanded our voter bloc. We don't want to, because that would actually mean us talking about things that are not related to the union. Like, it seems to be the case that people who used to vote for the Ulster Unionists are actually voting for Sinn Féin now. Why would they do that? Because Sinn Féin are presenting policies that these unionists care about. They probably don't agree with Sinn Féin when it comes to unionism, but they see Sinn Féin as talking about the NHS, they see Sinn Féin talking about education, talking about cost of living, and they're abandoning the UUP, the Ulster Unionists, to vote for Sinn Féin because they care about these issues. And the response from the UUP here, Danny Kennedy, is, well, we need to be compensated. We don't want to change. This is insane.
You began this conversation by saying the Ulster Unionist Party had a decent result and wasn't being swept away. Now you're saying you're worried it is being swept away.
No, I'm saying thanks to the good sense of the people of Slieve Gullion, there continues to be unionist representation, which will not only serve the unionist tradition there, but also the wider community.
Enda, what do you think about what's been suggested? Is there a point in what Danny Kennedy is saying? Do you understand the point that Danny's making?
Well, I do to a degree, but I don't know how it works its way through an election, because obviously when...
You can't. How can you have an election? It's not democratic to say, well, we need to allocate a number of votes to a minority party. You can't have that in an election. That's anti-democratic. Like, the problem in Northern Ireland was, in the past, it wasn't democratic. Since 1998, there's an attempt to make it more and more democratic. Now, there are issues about representation in the executive, but these are local elections. You know, this is insane. Once again, unionism is declining in Northern Ireland. And unionists, politicians, don't want to change their policies to reach out to people beyond unionism.
Parties go to fight an election, they're going to maximise their vote, maximise their candidate and get their best return. I don't think conversations like that will probably cut much ice with Mary Lou McDonald when you see what the party's heading down south and indeed and here in Northern Ireland as well. Albeit maybe the sentiment behind it, maybe she accepted or appreciated what you're trying to say in terms of the orange and green divide and where we ultimately might end.
The point is, I understand about elections.
Now he's starting to dig a hole.
And parties want to enter elections to win seats and to gain the most possible votes and all of that there. But on the wider front, somebody has to have a look at where we are with community relations in this country and how, in a divided society, do we simply continue to carve up and say, this is our territory, that's your territory, and you end up with, at the best of it, a benign apartheid.
But what's the solution, Danny? What are the thoughts that you put forward to suggest here's another better way?
The solution is that we, Ulster Unionist, from an Ulster Unionist Party point of view, is that we want Northern Ireland to work. We want Northern Ireland.
What is your solution to a situation where people vote and they get the candidate that they vote for? What is your solution to that quote-unquote problem? For most people, that's not a problem. For the Ulster Unionists, it's a problem. So what's your solution to that problem? Well, we need to make Northern Ireland work. The public obviously see Northern Ireland not working. That's why they're voting for Sinn Féin.
And be inclusive. We want Northern Ireland to succeed, not on the basis of a benign apartheid.
think that's a given, but it's how that works through in practice, I think, is a problem.
Yeah. But that is the things that unionism has to reflect upon in terms of how inclusive you are. At the moment, what we see in Alliance is unionism drawing the wagons around a declining base and trying to defend that rather than reaching out with the point of zero.
But Alliance, by its own admission, is not a unionist party.
No, but we represent everyone.
Why would it dictate how unionism should behave?
Well, I'm just giving you some friendly advice in the sense if you feel your vote is declining, it's because you're retreating. You're not embracing change in society. I mean, Northern Ireland is now a society of minorities. It's no longer a unionist-dominated society. We're all minorities of different descriptions. And I'm sure this is the case for you, Danny, as well.
Nobody's suggesting a unionist domination.
Every elected representative
I haven't heard that
treats every citizen who crosses their threshold, asks for advice equally. No one asks what religion you are, what background you're from, how you voted. If someone approaches you as a constituent, you look at their case objectively on its merits. Every elected representative has to do that. But you have to also reflect upon the fact that you are digging yourselves into a hole. I mean, the decisions you guys are taking, which are exclusive, you're not embracing change. For example, in Brand mentioned Craigavon, you wouldn't engage gay pride, for example. What sort of message does that send out?
But we have representation, hopefully, on all Northern Ireland's councils, so we continue to make a positive contribution.
All right, let's...
His response to all of to friendly advice was to laugh it off. Why should I listen to what the Alliance Party have to say? They're not unionists. This is about a political party that's seeing their vote share decline, and they're complaining about that. And instead of actually presenting policies that would encourage people from other communities, the nationalist community, from the neutral community as well, people who don't claim to be nationalist or unionist, instead of encouraging those people to vote for the Ulster Unionists, his response is, well, let's just circle the wagons, complain, ask for some sort of compensation here. Unionism, it seems, is declining. The DUP held on to their vote. They didn't see an increase or a decline, which suggests that their voters didn't bother really to come out. But the Ulster Unionists and the SDLP have pretty much collapsed in these local elections. Now, the focus here is, of course, on the UUP, the Ulster Unionists, and Danny Kennedy as a representative of those. And what is he representing? Well, we're sticking our heels in the ground and we're not going to change. And anyone who's giving us advice about, maybe something you could do to help increase your vote share, well, we're not going to listen to that. Absolutely ridiculous. But back to the main point here. He's complaining that Sinn Féin were running candidates, I should say, in unionist areas, and because the voters came out and voted for Sinn Féin over Ulster Unionists, he has a problem with that. He has a problem with democracy. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think about all of this. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot.